Kazakhstan is a really young country, much younger than the United States. So a good portion of the population here, I think around 50% is under the age of 29. And so a lot of young people just in general we find are much better at seeing the difference between opinion and fact, seem less likely to fall for misinformation and disinformation. And I get the same sense here, but I think one of the difficulties is that the media environment here is still so new and growing and developing. There are a lot of sources that, there are some, I think, what I would call truly independent media sources that are trying under the circumstances here to cover things as accurately as they possibly can. But there are many other sources that, are state-specific media, and that's obviously giving a different perspective on the world. So I think the common thread is that there's not really any real media literacy training in both, and so the people who are more comfortable with digital native platforms, who grew up with them, we have generations now, certainly here and elsewhere, where they've only ever known the internet. Like I was in a position where, when I was young and growing up, I had access to a computer when I was, just 5 years old, but we didn't have the internet. I remember the early days of the internet, and I remember getting my first email address, and now, you're born today and you already have an Instagram profile and a Facebook profile right when you come out into the hospital. So it's different, and I think that we're just in this very bifurcated time where older generations are not used to this. They are used to getting news just from television and newspapers, and that was a very specific way to get information, and today it's coming from all directions. And so your ability to explain, discern, and understand it's just much more challenging today. And it's not like people have a lot of time to do it, so that makes it particularly hard. I think the biggest things that I see are, of course, that it's not a fully independent press. Its ability to publish certain things is just limited by the government. I am hopeful that the new government is going to improve on that. Certainly Tokayev has talked about wanting to be a reformer, wanting to open up society. He appears willing to engage with the youth, which I think is a positive sign. But as with so many things, you wait to see what happens. But it's very clear over the last few weeks that the youth in this country want to see the political situation change. I know, in having worked with many news outlets here, that they very much want to adopt those ideals of a free and independent press, and many of them I've been very impressed with the last few weeks as they've covered the election. Just their ability to cover both the election and the protests that resulted from that, and I think, considering the circumstances, they've done a good job. Again, is our press in the United States perfect? No. We have issues and we have problems. We tend to focus, I think, too much on national politics and the Trump administration, when really we need to focus a lot more on local issues that affect people. We were talking about media literacy, and right now it's not something that's compulsory in the United States. I don't know of any place that it is, but it's certainly being talked about. And I think that everybody, whether it's in Kazakhstan or the United States, should go through some kind of media literacy course. We were talking a little bit about how you offer some of that, but ideally I think learning that in high school or secondary education and maybe in university is really good, just because the world's changing too much. And it's not that you're telling people what to believe, but you're helping them understand the signals that explain why something might be trusted or why it might not be trusted. And we're not doing that right now. And I think it's really essential because the world's changing too quickly. Information's coming from everywhere, and it's exhausting. How do you know what to trust? I tell people all the time that you should read a variety of trusted sources if you want. In the United States, if you want a more conservative leaning publication, read the Wall Street Journal and read its editorial pages, reliably conservative. If you want a more liberal take on the world, read the New York Times and its editorial pages. And that'll give you a sense of really both sides of an issue. And many issues, of course, have multiple sides to them. But the danger is that you end up only consuming one source of information and you get a skewed version of the world. It's not what reality is. And, this happened with us in 2016. There was this blindness to the fact that Donald Trump could potentially become president. And for a variety of reasons. And so this is what I'm talking about with like issues with our own media. Like there was a lot of media criticism after the fact that, how could you have missed this? Like, and there's economic reasons. The local news media in the United States is under tremendous economic pressure, and that makes it much harder from a media literacy standpoint when national publications are thriving and people only are consuming news and information from national publications. Like, they're not as connected to their communities, and I think that that's certainly an area in Kazakh media that I'd love to see more about. Like, I get the sense that a lot of the publications here, a lot of them cover a lot of the same things, and I think there's a real opportunity to like have media sources that differentiate themselves by covering, maybe the city of Almaty like really, really well, or maybe it's transportation in Kazakhstan really, really well, or whatever it might be. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing, as the media continues to evolve here, more diversity of sources of information and different focuses and subject areas.